But as long as we say to ourselves we will do as we please, the same thing it falls into our moral structure. The morality of the people is falling, and falling seriously.
Good evening, everyone. I hope all is well in these unfortunate, troubling times. Would like to bring some awareness to you of a video that I was a part of with the One Great Word Warriors, Chris, Derek, Jim, Jerry, and Crip Rick. We recently just put out a video this week titled Morality, Ethics, and Values. And of course, this is a topic that isn't very much well appreciated in society because once you start talking about morality, truth, real objective knowledge, then it rubs people the wrong way. So, what I wanted to do was kind of explore people's consciousness and explore people's ability to think. And of course, morality, ethics, and values were always talked about in many myths and many great legends. So I wanted to kind of not come from just a linear perspective, but trying to give people a myth so they can break down these terms, break down these words, break down these truths or aspects of what has happened and what is happening now within ourselves and in this objective reality that we all share. Use these myths to get people to see the meaning, the symbolic nature in these representations. 'Cause you can take myths from many, many, many thousands of years ago and still learn from these myths, from the teachings and stories that we are going through now. So that's what I wanted to do. And I've talked about one of these myths being talked about in the teachings of Isis or the teachings of Mayat, the teachings of Hathor, and how she symbolized one aspect of nature. Once we aligned ourselves to her teachings and we took in the truth, we cared about morality, we cared about justice, we cared about knowledge, and we cared about, right action, doing the right thing associated with morals, ethics, and we value the truth. We value higher states of consciousness. And what we would reap, in the consequential realm, because you were aligned to that which is, people were caring for truth. People were caring for what has existed and what is existing now, things that have happened in the past, things that are happening now. And people actually had a care for that. Again, this was a symbolic representation to get people to understand, like, hey, truth is important. And once we align with it, then we will reap the benefits of it. Just as though if we align with Mayat's counterpart, Ishvet or Nemesis, once we decided to buy into lies, once we decided to ignore objective reality, because to ignore objective reality is to ignore the truth. Once man starts to say he can create that which is true, then he starts to say, well, he can control and create, the objective experience that everyone else is sharing this experience with. Because that would always lead to chaos. That would always lead to lack in harmony. And once you went into that chaos, then you couldn't understand the objective world. Then there was no integration. There was no harmony. So man would be out of balance, with the laws of nature, be out of balance with himself, because that true harmony is coming from within, and you just align to it. You align to it within yourself, which allows the external alignment with the objective world. And the teachings of Mayat and Ishvet were very important because it showed these two aspects in nature, love and fear. It showed these two aspects within ourselves, these aspects of consciousness, because that's really what love and fear are aspects of consciousness. And you're going to align with one or the other. And sometimes you're going back and forth, but man's goal is to align with love as much as he can, through free will choice, by taking in knowledge of the objective reality so he can learn to understand himself and the objective reality. So the second part I wanted to talk about is because, when we do talk about morality, we're talking about behavior. We're talking about actions, things that we do toward the people. So in this should come an understanding with knowledge. In this should come judgment, discernment. Because technically that's what morality is discernment. Whenever you are engaged in discernment, then you are engaged with moral intercourse within your own thinking, because you're saying, hey, is this action I'm about to take, does it align with morality? Is it aligned to, to the laws of nature? Because if it isn't, then I understand that there's going to be consequences, just as though I understand there's going to be consequences if they are aligned. You understand that there's consequences with all actions that we take. So would you not want to choose the good actions over the bad actions? That's where the discernment should be coming from. That's where the logic, that's where the judgment, that's where the thinking, the critical discernment, it has to come. So when we're talking about morality, we're talking about discernment. That's what separates us from the other animals, is our level of discernment, our ability to cognize, to contemplate, to think, to memorize, and then associate that with certain experiences that we have had in reality or that we have learned about, certain experiences that ourselves, may have gone through, or certain experiences that we learn from others. So all of that judgment is going to be required. And in order to make good judgment, you have to take in good knowledge. So, hell, again, morality is associated with discernment, and discernment is the second, or logic is the second part of the trivium. So you can't have morality without an understanding of the trivium, because in order to get to the behavior, it has to be put through logic, and it has to be gathered in information and grammar. So you have this infinite wheel of grammar, logic, rhetoric, input, processing, output, that just goes on throughout her manifestation. And if the individual understands that aspect, he understands that moral aspect, then he can choose to take in right, correct grammar, so he can possibly process it in the form of logic. So then therefore he will put out good, moral, ethical behavior. It's really quite simple once you understand the basic of it. But the problem is people's deceptive programming, people's indoctrination. And this was the third part that I wanted to get, is when you try to bring these concepts to people, when you try to break these terms down to people, they have an incorrect version of reality. And their incorrect version, or their wrong version of reality, is based upon their own worldviews, their beliefs, and their definitions of words. So because they're using words that they don't understand the definition of it, then therefore when they try to build reality off an ill understanding or a misunderstanding of definitions, then you're going to build a bullshit reality, because it's not going to be reflected of the true objective reality, because the words that we use at the etymological meaning are the base words that give meaning. They represent something in reality. They represent a truth. They represent substance, or they can represent the essence of something. All of that, which is a makeup of things in reality and of ourselves. So when you use the correct word to describe something, like this is a mouse, this is associated, the term mouse is associated with this. Yes, it's associated with, the life form of a mouse, but this is a computer mouse in computer jargon. So that word is descriptive of this thing in reality. So we have to use the correct words to describe reality. That's the whole point of what I'm saying, is if we use incorrect words to describe something, then we are coming to an ill understanding of the objective world. So how can we align ourselves to that which is true if we have an incorrect version of the definitions that make up things in reality that are true? So again, it comes down to the language. You have to define your terms. So when we are talking with people, we have to define what is morality. We have to define what is ethical. We have to define, what is good. So we are building this baseline so they can structure their understanding. Therefore, it's not being structured off their incorrect version of understanding based on their perception. That's what I was trying to get across in the video. It does take time to kind of build this stuff up, but as I'm pushing myself more and more to understand myself and understand this objective reality that we are all sharing, then you'll learn more and more. And that's what it's all about, is to constantly seek the truth, constantly be willing to learn more, and, constantly be willing to teach other people. And understanding that, it isn't just about you. It isn't just about your group. There is a bigger picture here that needs to be understood. And when we align to truth, we should be aligning to that which is moral. And we can see the objective consequences for our ignorance, just as though we could visibly create the consequences in our minds, so we can see that. And that's the power of the mind, is we can create all kinds of bullshit. We can create all kinds of wrongdoing. We can create all kinds of scenarios in our mind. We can create scenarios in our mind that will never ever happen, but only in our mind. And then that will create all the forms of hell emotion. So that's the power of the mind. That's the power, the gift that people don't want to be responsible for. Because with thinking and judgment comes responsibility. Because with higher states of consciousness comes more knowledge, comes more complexity, and more responsibility. And that's what I was trying to get across in the video. So I hope people can learn from it. There's the QR code if people want to scan it. It's already uploaded on multiple platforms. So, we've got to get back to an understanding of the Trivium process, because without it, we will never really accurately come to understand the information that we take in through our senses, through our intuition, through the grammar. We will never be able to understand this information that we take in, and to even format it, to process it, break it down, and develop logic. That we will never ever understand this reality that we share with other people, and we'll never ever understand ourselves. So we've got to get back to, this means of logic and understanding within ourselves. So peace out. Hope you enjoy the video. If not, hey, that's your fucking problem. If you care for truth, if one really cares for truth, they'll seek out the truth, and they'll deal with whatever bullshits that come head along. That's the sacrifice that people aren't willing to do. So peace out.
The effects are inherent in their causes. We observe every day that causes produce consequences. But most people are so much interested in their own ideas about consequences that they overlook the problem of causation.